We will continue the hymn of Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya.
Di sini di Universitas Ciputra, cakrawala masa depan terbuka bagi generasi muda bangsa Indonesia untuk menjadi entrepreneur utama. Di sini di Universitas Ciputra, semua mimpi akan menjadi nyata. Siap berengkawasi penuh dengan inovasi, bekerja dan berguna untuk dunia. Jadilah yang unggul dan terdepan dengan keahlian dan ilmu pengetahuan, turut serta membangun bangsa Indonesia dan siap menantang dunia. Bersama Universitas Ciputra, gemilang masa depan di tangan kita. Di sini di Universitas Ciputra, cakrawala masa depan terbuka bagi generasi muda bangsa Indonesia untuk menjadi entrepreneur utama. Di sini di Universitas Ciputra, semua mimpi akan menjadi nyata. Siap mengawasi penuh dengan inovasi, bekerja dan berguna untuk dunia. Jadilah yang unggul dan terdepan dengan keahlian dan ilmu pengetahuan, turut serta membangun bangsa Indonesia dan siap menantang dunia. Bersama Universitas Ciputra, gemilang masa depan di tangan kita.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you so much. Before we start our activity, our conference for today, we will have opening prayer from Dr. Natalia Kristiani, SPD, MPD.
Before we start, let's pray. Dear Almighty God, thank you for today. Because of your grace, we can hold this conference, the 7th International Conference on Entrepreneurship, ICOEN. Please bless the speakers, the participants, and all the tools that we use to run all the things well. Thank you, God. In the name of you, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Natalia Kristiani, SPD, MPD. And now, please enjoy opening performance by PASM.
Masanya penggelar jauh di awan kawan,
Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to hear welcoming speech from our conference chairman, Dr. Anda Tina Melinda, MM, CPM Asia.
Welcome to the 7th International Conference in Entrepreneurship. I'm Professor Dr. Christine.
I would like to welcome all distinguishing participants to the 7th International Conference on Entrepreneurship, ICOEN 2020, held by Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya. The theme of this conference is Sustainable Entrepreneurial Competitive Advantage in Digital Era. On this occasion, allow me to give special thanks to the keynote speaker, Mr. Insinyur Iskandar Abu Bakar, Master of Science, Professor Aaron Okas, and Dr. Hamid Boshiki. Thank you to Rector of Universitas Ciputra, Dean of Business and Management Faculty, and ICOEN Committee for the proactive support during our preparation, as well as the conference day. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to reviewers for their dedication, effort, and commitment to review all the full papers submitted in this conference. In addition, we would like to thank all authors who have submitted their papers to be reviewed and presented in this conference. My best wishes to all participants of the 7th International Conference on Entrepreneurship, ICOEN. Thank you. Salam Entrepreneur.
Thank you, Mrs. Tina Melinda. And now, welcoming speech from Rector of Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya, Insinyur Yohanes Somawiharja, MSc.
Good morning for all participants and speakers. A warm greeting from Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to the 7th International Conference in Entrepreneurship, or ICOEN 2020. The conference theme this year, Sustainable Entrepreneurial Competitive Advantage in Digital Era, is carefully chosen to fit the current needs. In this digital and pandemic era, the change is inevitable and becoming more even complex, posing a critical issue for organization to be more entrepreneurial in order to keep survive and grow. Therefore, in this conference, I'm expecting a comprehensive exchange of ideas in relevance to the challenges in the digital combined with the pandemic era and the opportunities they create for businesses, and also in terms of achieving entrepreneurial competitive advantage. The 7th International Conference on Entrepreneurship 2020 is a continuity from the previous 6 annual conferences held in Indonesia and Timor-Leste. This year, ICOEN seeks to continue the tradition of providing platform for scholars and practitioners to present and discuss their research findings. I believe many interesting ideas will be exchanged to address the current challenges in digital and pandemic era. In this opportunity, I would also like to appreciate the efforts of all ICOEN committee members in organizing this event, despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and bringing us together through this virtual conference. My appreciation also goes to the keynote speakers who are willing to participate in this conference. So ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I declare the 7th International Conference on Entrepreneurship 2020 officially open. My best wishes to all participants, and I hope you will gain a fruitful experience from this conference. Thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay happy, and stay productive. Have a great day and have a great conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johannes Somawiharja. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming speech from Dean of Faculty of Management and Business of Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya, Professor Dr. Christina Widya Utami, MM, CLC, CPM Asia.
Welcome to the 7th International Conference in Entrepreneurship. I'm Professor Dr. Christina Widya Utami on behalf of the Faculty of Management and Business. I would like to give my warm greeting to Insinyur Johannes Somawiharja, Master of Science, as Rector of Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya, our honorable keynote speakers, Insinyur Iskandar Abu Bakar, Master of Science, Professor Aaron Okas, and Professor Hamid Boshiki, and to all the participants of this conference. As we all know, entrepreneurship has become a crucial aspect in order to improve the economic development of a country. Encouraging entrepreneurship is considered a key to creating jobs and improving competitiveness and economic growth in Indonesia. The importance of entrepreneurship is widely recognized today as a positive skill to be developed through a lifelong learning and experiential learning. It could start from the education system from an early age to encourage people to be able to see a profitable business opportunity for them as well as the society. The 7th International Conference in Entrepreneurship is held to answer the dynamic, the opportunities, and the challenges in creating entrepreneur. This conference is held as a series of ICOEN annual seminar, which has been held for 6 times in Indonesia and Timor-Leste. The 7th International Conference in Entrepreneurship promotes entrepreneurship in relation to economic, industrial, and business development with the topic of sustainability in digital era using entrepreneurial competitive advantage. I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate the organizing committee led by Dr. Tina Melinda for their commitment and hard work to ensure the smooth running of the conference in the middle of the pandemic. by moving the platform to virtual conference. I also would like to thank the keynote speaker for their enthusiasm in participating in this conference. I hope that all the participants will gain fruitful insight and knowledge from the extraordinary speakers today. My best wishes to all the participants, and I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Salam entrepreneur.
Thank you, Mrs. Vidya Utami. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you again to change your Zoom account using your real name. And if you want to get certificate from this conference, please fill out the form below. Once again, please change your Zoom account using your real name. And if you want to get certificate for this event, please fill out the form below. Ladies and gentlemen, in a short while, we are going to listen to the presentation from our keynote speakers. Therefore, I would like to introduce you to our moderator for today's conference, Dr. Agustinus Nicholas Hilabrandes Oro, SA, MBA.
Thank you, Pachali. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ICOEN 7 conference in entrepreneurship. Without any further delay, I would like to introduce our first distinguished keynote speaker today, Insinyur Iskandar Abu Bakar, Master of Science. He is an engineer from University of North Sumatra, Medan in 1979. He got his Master of Science degree from Imperial College of Science and Technology, University of London in London, 1986. He was the former Director General of Transportation Ministry, Republic of Indonesia, and also President Commissioner of PT Kereta Api, Commissioner of PT Jasa Marga, Commissioner of PT Pelindo 3, and today he's still the Chairman of Jakarta Transportation Council. And last but not least, he's also an entrepreneur of his own company named Jax Morgan. We would like to hear from Insinyur Iskandar Abu Bakar, Master of Science, without any further delay. Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Iskandar Abu Bakar.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to give a presentation at this seminar. I think it will be very important for us to share knowledge between probably I am from the government before, and now I'm an entrepreneur myself. And I think today I will give a presentation about transportation in general. And my presentation will be about gaining the competitive advantage in the transport industry. Yeah. So if you look at transportation, then we have several businesses related to transportation. Among others is from the road transport is the fleet management, motorways. Yeah, right now we have Jasa Marga and other toll roads operators, and then we have rural local roads. Railway, I think it is divided into three main businesses. There's about the track, but it's now actually run all by PT KAI, stations and signaling. Aviation, yeah, airports and navigation, airlines, yeah. Today there are only two big airlines in Indonesia: maritime, port, inland waterways, shipyard, fleets, and the last but not least is about the logistic and intermodal transportation. Well, we go to the next slide. Yeah, if you look at the transport overview of the transport sector, then the main problem, the main thing, what is important in transportation is how to get a connectivity. Yeah, as you know, the transport is a key enabler of economic growth and trade. Yes, you know, with a good connectivity, yeah, then we get a good transport flow throughout the nation. And as you know, Indonesia is a nation of islands. So it is very important for us how to make a good transportation system connectivity between islands and between cities. Growth, yeah, I think as you know, transport systems are fundamental for the economic growth and well-functioning market. Yeah, so I think as you can see, if the transportation is good, then the growth will grow very fast. Yeah, and as you know, right now Indonesia is is building a lot of new toll roads, and that gives a good connectivity between cities in Indonesia and between islands in Indonesia. And I think the other important thing is about the uh, public and private sector, yeah, for improving the efficiency of the transport system. So what we are needing right now is how to get a good sustainability, yeah. And as you know, the key sector challenge, yeah, what we are facing right now is the infrastructure gap, yeah. As you know, economic growth and development requires transportation and mobility and better connected infrastructure service. Public investment in transport infrastructure and service has failed right now to keep pace with the growth of in demand. So as you can see right now, the traffic jam in Jakarta or in main roads in Indonesia seems to be that the system is not enough. Yeah, so probably I will talk to you later about what we can do in the future. And then state ownership governance. Yeah, ownership remains high in the sector of transportation. So I think what we are facing right now is weak governance and lack uh, of competition. Next slide, as you can see, key sector. It is increasing the private sector participation is very important right now because we cannot all depend uh, on the public sector, but we have to go for public sector participation in the development and management and operation of transport infrastructure, including under the public-private partnership, which is all needed in Indonesia. And the next important issue, challenge, what we are facing is we are facing with low carbon and environmental and social focus. Yeah, as you know, right now, Indonesia is still depending on fuel from oil fuel and coal, but the problem is the environment is not good with the use of fuel. So we have to change to more environment friendly fuel or low carbon fuel in the future. So as we are talking about the investment right now, yeah, transport demand is strongly linked with the GDP, yeah, and population growth. So as you can see in the, if I was still a lecturer in the Bekasi School of Transportation, at that time in the 80s, the trip rate is approximately 1.8 per person per day. And right now it's already reaching 3, yeah, in the area of Jabodetabek. Yeah. So it means it is very linked, yeah, between the transport demand and growth of GDP. Yeah, based on the infrastructure competitiveness, yeah, Indonesia is not so quite good, but we are moving to the uh, better, because right now our infrastructure competitiveness uh, index is already 56. Yeah, from before it was 84. So it means there is a good widening the investment gap. Yeah, so I think right now the local government is depending on the budget transfer from the central government. So for the local, because right now the infrastructure is not done by the central government alone, but also by the province government and the Kabupaten Kota government. So they are depending on the budget transfer from the central government. So sometimes the budget is not enough, so the quality of the infrastructure is not so quite good. Investment gap, financial intermediate institutions have already been established. Yeah, for example, the Infrastructure Investment Agency, the Sarana Multi Infrastructure, the Indonesian Infrastructure Guarantee Fund. These companies finance the toll roads right now in Indonesia and the harbors and airports. Yeah, but we are still needing a lot of investment in the infrastructure because, as I mentioned before, the investment gap is very high. State ownership and governance, yeah, inadequate infrastructure, poor market access, inefficient infrastructure impede to business growth and degrade quality of living. As you know, right now, tourism is actually a good industry in the future. But the problem right now is there is no connectivity to the very good tourism area. So there is a need for us right now how to improve, how to improve the infrastructure so we can get a lot of money from the tourism industry, because tourism industry in Indonesia is not a very high opportunity right now, but we are going to that direction, how to give a better infrastructure for to improve the tourism industry. Environmental issues, as you know, right now in the urban area, we are depending about, for example, in Jakarta condition, the modal share of public transport is only approximately 24%, while the modal share is 24% by public transport and 76% by private transport. So it means, and the demand is rising day by day, and you can see right now that the traffic jam is already very severe in several cities. And if we go to areas in, for example, so if we go out of Jakarta, then the main toll roads is already congested, including the arterial roads, severe congested. So it means there is a need to change the modal share from private transport to public transport. That is very important. We just built the MRT in Jakarta, but the MRT itself is only 14.5 kilometers, not enough to serve the people of Jakarta. So we need more kilometers to solve the transfer from private transport to public transport. One important issue what we are facing right now in Jakarta is, for example, the public space is far below 10% because it's only approximately 6% in the of total area, while, for example, as in the city of Singapore is 15%. So it means that the space for transport infrastructure is very, very low, and there is a need for us to give a good push for modal split higher for public transport. So the dominance of cars and motorcycle, as you know, condition of Jakarta traffic, yeah, about 80% of all the trips are by motorcycles. Yeah. So it means the motorcycle is a very, very important mode of transport. But the main problem is with motorcycles, they are not safe. Yeah. Motorcycles are very, very unstable. So it means we have to move to more public transport services. So it means that is very important for us how to improve the public transport in Indonesia to get a better environment in Jakarta. Now, if we go for transport sector overview, yeah, first I will look at the road network. Yeah, road infrastructure dominates the mobility of people and goods. Yeah, in 1998, sorry, it is in 2008. I mentioned to the minister at that time. Yeah, why we are moving all the goods, yeah, main transport of goods is by road, yeah, because at that time they are transporting for example, rice or potatoes from North Sumatra to Jakarta. It's using road transport, and road transport is actually very expensive and very polluted. So I mentioned to him why we not go for a short sea shipping system in Indonesia. Yeah, at the time I was the Director General of Land Transport, and he he pushed the thing, and now it become actually under the name of sea toll. Yeah, the sea toll is one of the important uh, things, mode of transport that is being pushed by the government, but still the number of freight is still very high by road transport. And as you see right now, and if you go for the Pantura road right now, it is actually dominated by trucks, and the trucks is coming actually from Surabaya to Jakarta. Yeah. So why they are not using the sea? Yeah, from Surabaya to Jakarta, because if they are using sea, then the pollution is lower, energy use is lower, and then the fare should be, the tariff should be lower, but that is not the case right now. So everybody is using the road transport. We have a extensive road transport, but still not enough. Yeah, and as you know, right now, President Jokowi is pushing for uh, the expanding the toll roads in Indonesia, not only in Java, but also in Sumatra, yeah, just opened from Dumai to Pekanbaru, yeah, and then also in other islands like in Manado, yeah, and then in Kalimantan, yeah, where the demand is high, then President Jokowi is pushing for the uh, improve extension of the toll roads, and that's, I think it's very important. But there are problems with the toll roads right now. And now we go for the railways. Yeah, railways only developed in Java Island and Sumatra. There is a plan to build a railway for coal in Kalimantan, but still it's not moving very well. But I think rail transport is actually better, much better than road transport. And as you know, for urban railway, right now we just built the MRT, and the MRT already reaching a high demand. Yeah, Jabodetabek Railway also get a very high demand. Yeah, but probably due to the COVID-19 pandemic, yeah, everything is very, very low. Uh, coal is still actually transported by rail, but this only from Sumatra, South Sumatra to Java for coal. I think now we go for aviation. Aviation actually, it was a big hit, yeah, of development of the aviation was after the 9/11 in America. Uh, uh, at that time, the rent of fleets are very, very cheap. At that time, Lion start their operation in Indonesia using a very low fare rental fee. So they suddenly got a good connection, and that changed a lot of the transportation in Indonesia, because at the time before the 9/11, the transport passenger transport from Jakarta to Surabaya was very high by buses and train. But after 9/11, new companies, aviation companies grow in Indonesia, and suddenly the price drops. And at that time, there was a change from road transport to aviation. Yeah, and until now, the aviation industry is getting stronger, but only few. Yeah, Lion Air is getting very strong actually, and Garuda, but the other companies are many of them are fall. Maritime, we have actually, as I mentioned before, yeah, we have to improve our maritime industry. We have to reduce all the costs at the harbor, yeah, because right now the main cost of transportation by sea is right now the cost at the harbor. Yeah, so if we can reduce the cost at the harbor, then we can improve our maritime industry. That's the main problem what we are facing right now in Indonesia. So I think it is very important for us right now how to improve our uh, harbor management, so we can improve our transportation. And right now, actually, as you know, containers are the important means of transport, because it intermobility, yeah, because it can use the road, rail, and sea. Uh, I think if we improve our harbor, as I mentioned before, what I mentioned to the minister, if we improve our short sea shipping, then we can reduce our transport costs in Indonesia, because right now our transport cost is very, very high. Yeah. And one important issue what we are also facing, yeah, is that the harbor can only handle container vessel with a capacity up to 18,000. But in the world of right now, it is already very, very high, because the Panamax is already size is already going up. Yeah, and as you know, Indonesia right now, we are actually our hub of freight transport by containers is actually Singapore. Yeah, so everything is going to Singapore, and from Singapore and then sent to everywhere in the world. Yeah, because they have high volume. Yeah, so actually, Pelindo want to build a park, yeah, to actually how to compete with Singapore, that is in Kuala Tanjung. So Kuala Tanjung is an important project what is being developed right now by the Pelindo One, yeah, and hoping that to increase to get a good market, they are working together with the company from Netherlands, so they can make a good demand, yeah, because as you know, Holland, they have a very important harbor. Yeah, it's Rotterdam. So Pelindo One is working together with Rotterdam Port, and if they're working together with Rotterdam Port, then they will get a lot of freight going through Kuala Tanjung. Logistic costs, as I mentioned before, yeah, because the system is not right. Yeah, the logistic costs varies between 25 to 30% of the GDP. Yeah, and if you compare to other countries, yeah, it is only below 5%. So it means there is a big business opportunity. Yeah, this seminar is actually going to the direction of entrepreneurship, then there is a big opportunity how to improve our logistic costs from 25 to 5%. Big opportunity. I think that it will be important for Ciputra, yeah, University to prepare the candidates of entrepreneurs in logistics. Next, I will probably going for competitiveness. I think everybody knows about the five Porter's forces, yeah, and I think I will talk a little bit about the five forces in transport. So, as you know, buyers pay less and get more. Yeah, this is what the buyers always want, and there's one important issue in the transport industry. Yeah, in the transport industry, there are two main factors that affect the demand. Yeah, the first is time, and the second is the cost of money. Yeah, so this is formulated as the generalized cost. Yeah, the generalized cost is the function of uh, money. Yeah, and time. So if you look at that formula, so if I go to the next slide, I give you an example. I was still the director, I was still the commissioner of Jasa Marga at that time. We opened the toll road at that time, yeah, from Cipularang toll road. At the time, the Cipularang, when it was open, the travel time from Cawang, that's Jakarta actually, and border of Jakarta, to Bandung was only reduced to 1.5 hours. Yeah, before if you take the arterial roads and partly probably the toll to Cikampek, it takes about 4 to 5 hours. Yeah, so as I mentioned in my previous slide, it means that the travel time reduced so much, yeah, and the cost at that time was not very high, yeah, compared to toll roads fare right now. And at that time, it was actually planned for 24,000 vehicles a day, but at the opening, we already reached 34,000. So it means it was over planned, yeah, but it gives effects, yeah, yeah. The effects is railway service, yeah. Before the toll road was open, Argo Gede and Pariahangan service was the most important railway link to Bandung. It takes only 3 hours and 15 minutes, yeah, and they have to close their services, yeah, most of their services, and reduce probably up to 60% because most of the passengers use the toll road. Yeah, but over time the traffic on Cipularang increases, and then the travel time to Bandung gets longer. Yeah, the train finally added their service to Bandung. But yeah, if you look at the next slide, yeah, in the few months, yeah, probably if they are not missed next year, there will be a new service to Bandung with a high-speed train. Yeah, this high-speed train at the speed of approximately 250 kilometers, but it could run above 300 kilometers an hour. Yeah, and the travel time to Bandung will be only 45 minutes. Yeah. So yeah, and at the tariff, what they are planning is actually 300,000. It is approximately the same as the railway tariff right now, between 150 and 300 thousand rupiah. So it means there will be a shift, but the shift I think depends on the connection from the Jakarta city to the station, high-speed station, because the high-speed station will be at the Taman Mini, Indonesia. So it's quite far actually from the center of Jakarta. While if you use the normal railway, it starts from Gambir. Yeah, so it's very easy actually to access Gambir because it is in the center of Jakarta. Now I will talk a little bit about the toll roads, yeah, because as you know right now, Pantura toll roads just opened, yeah, probably a few years ago, yeah. But the main problem is that the fare is too high, yeah. If you compare, or if you see right now, the numbers of trucks and buses and cars using the toll roads are very, very low. Yeah, I think that's not a good idea. Yeah, so that's. But on the other hand, yeah, the toll road in in the urban areas is having severe traffic jams. Yeah, so it means. In the urban area, the people have the money, they think the time and money what they get from the toll road is much better than if they go by normal road. But uh, eh, back to the Pantura toll road, yeah, just after Cikampek, the, because they think they go out from Cikampek, yeah, go out to the arterial roads, and they think it is much better for them to save money, yeah, because money is very important for lower income people. So it means the number of vehicles using the toll roads is very low right now. And if you see in this slide, yeah, then you can see that Jakarta Cikampek, yeah, the fare is approximately 15,000, yeah, at the average cost of 180 rupiah per kilometer, while the Cikampek to Semarang is 912, and Semarang to Surabaya is 1,000 rupiah per kilometer. So it means it's very, the difference is very high. So I think what is important for Jagorawi, yeah, they have to use the economic approach actually. Yeah, if you see, this is illustration what I got from reference, yeah, that the elasticity is approximately 0.18 to 0.43, yeah, minus 30. So it means if you reduce the tariff, yeah, then the demand will be higher, yeah, as we can see in this next slide. So we can use a marginal cost pricing for setting their fare. So if they use the marginal cost pricing, they will get more demand on the demand side, so the financing will be much better for the toll operators. Now we are talking about the suppliers. Yeah, back to the toll road example. Yeah, for building toll roads, I think most of the items are purchased based on state price. Yeah, so it means there is no room for pricing flexibility by suppliers. Very small room. But the main problems what we are facing right now in building the toll roads is the land acquisition. Yeah, land acquisition not only for toll roads but for every transport infrastructure. It is very very important. It is very the biggest problem is in land acquisition because very difficult for the government to make changes. Once I was had had a meeting with the minister, and I was at the time the director general of land transport and the commissioner of Jasa Marga. I mentioned to him, to the minister of economics, yeah, that the most important issue in developing toll roads are land acquisition. So we have to change the regulation. So at the time, I instructed his staff to make the changes, but until now, still problems with the land acquisitions. Substitutes, I think substitutes, if you talk to transport system, then we can go for example right now in the taxi industry. Taxi industry, it was a good business in the probably 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, the number of taxis in Jakarta are approximately 27,000. Yeah, and then suddenly there was a newcomer. Yeah, newcomer coming into the industry, that is the online industry, online taxi services. And you know that the number of taxis companies reduced to only 4 from 17 companies to only 4. Yeah. And the number of fleets operated by taxi company from 27 reduced to only 7,000. So it means it absorbed all the passengers from the regular taxi to the online taxi service. And this problems, yeah, of course, there is new company. Yeah, there are 3 big companies at the time. Yeah, that is the Gojek, Grab, and one more is already closed right now. The 3 companies right now, they have a good system of fare. So if you go for off peak, then it is much easier to use the online taxi. Yeah, and to cope with this problem, actually Bluebird is one of the biggest taxi company. They go online as well. Yeah, so otherwise they will die as the other companies. So it means competition between much very high. Yeah, and there is a new services what was uh, not not there is not a good company at that time, that is the motorcycle taxi. Yeah, motorcycle taxi, it was previously, yeah, not a good idea to use it, but now since the fare is very low, then everybody from the middle and lower income, they want to travel, they use the motorbike taxi. So new entries, yeah, that affects the I think we have already talked about the new entries. Yeah, yeah. Existing revolves. Yeah, I think toll roads. Yeah, they have the existing revolves of the uh, artery road. Yeah, so for the toll roads where the fare is too high, then most of the users do not use the toll road, but they use the artery road. So I think this is one shift, yeah, that has to be solved, yeah, by a much better tariff policy. Next is some samples, yeah, of the threats and for Garuda, for taxi industry. Yeah, so taxi industry is a not good good industry to come in. Yeah, probably for toll roads still open, but the main problem is for the competition and the pricing of the toll road. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will end my presentation, and I hope if you have any questions, you can ask me later on.
Thank you very much, Pak Iskandar Abu Bakar. We really appreciate your presentation, Pak Iskandar. Pak, there are challenges, Pak Iskandar. You're saying that there are widening infrastructure gap. On the other hand, the state ownership and governance. And since we are focusing on the entrepreneurship role, Pak Iskandar, you are also an entrepreneur today, and you are also at the same time chairman of the Jakarta Transportation Council, Pak. What do you think the role of the entrepreneurship, Pak Iskandar, in regards to the challenges that you have mentioned? And you know, you are also explaining that our competitiveness is moving toward the right track. Thank you, Pak Iskandar.
What is important is actually how to reduce the cost if you build an infrastructure. Yeah, so we have to look for cheaper solutions. Yeah, but giving good results. Yeah, as I mentioned before. Yeah, actually, a cheaper solution for long distance freight is actually because Indonesia is an island country, so sea transport should be utilized as much as possible. As you know, right now, if you go to Europe, yeah, for example, in Belgium, yeah, about 70 to 80% of their freight transport is by canals. Yeah, why not we develop our infrastructure for sea infrastructure, how to provide a cheap solution, yeah, for sea transportation, because the transport cost itself is low, yeah, but the main problem, the cost at the harbor is very high. Yeah, so we have to find solution. Yeah, so I think that is a good business opportunity. Yeah, because if we go right now for road transport, and the road transport is actually getting a better infrastructure due to the new toll roads. Yeah, you can right now go to Surabaya, yeah, from Jakarta only in how many hours?
8 hours.
Yeah,
8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So
with the speed of 100 kilometers per hour.
Yeah. But yeah, if we go for 80 hours, only 8 hours or 10 hours from Jakarta to Surabaya, then you are speeding.
It's 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's 100 kilometer speed. So
yeah. But average speed on the toll road, I think it is the ranging, yeah, it is from 80 to probably 120, 140, yeah.
So I'm okay.
I'm driving to East Java quite often, yeah. It seems to be that some cars are running probably 140, yeah. Safety is not good at it.
Yeah, Pak Iskandar, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, once he said that innovation is the only way to win in a competition. But your experiences in, let's say, Jasa Marga, especially PT Jasa Marga is one of the biggest transport companies.
Sorry, I can
because you were there before.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pak.
What is important actually, to extend the toll roads. Yeah, but what is also important is how to keep the fare low. Yeah, if the fare is high, then the people, because when I was the commissioner of Jasa Marga, went to Medan. Yeah, Medan, there is a toll road from Lawan to to Medan. Yeah, but the number of vehicles using Blawan Medan at the time, the tariff is only 5,000. Nobody's using because they think 5,000 is a lot. They can get a meal with 5,000. Yeah, so they are not using the toll roads. Yeah, because it's very price sensitive. Yeah, so I think for the toll roads, if they want to raise their demand, it's very important to reduce their fare. And one important issue, not important one, but several of us, yeah, for the toll roads in Jakarta itself, yeah, inner toll roads, yeah, the main problems is capacity, yeah, and the main problems, yeah, is actually at the toll gates, yeah. You know yourself, yeah. We go to use the toll road. Toll gates are always give a delay, a quite high delay, yeah. The main problem is Jasa Marga, they are a little bit reluctant in new technology. I think it's very important for them actually to use contactless system, yeah, because right now there are contactless system which can operate very well at the speed of 60 or more kilometers an hour, yeah. So they can reduce one main spot in Jakarta, but they are quite reluctant in introducing new technology, yeah. But on the other hand, yeah, we have to give salute as well to Jasa Marga when they change from money, yeah, to cards. Yeah, it is a big step, but big step could be better, yeah, if they go for uh, contactless systems.
All right, thank you, Pak Iskandar. Pak, this is one last question from me, Pak. Because you are saying environmental issues, that could be one of the major obstacles in the future. You name it, for Jasa Marga, for Pelindo. But looking at the entrepreneurship aspect, Pak, again, taking risks, looking at the future, what do you think a company like Pelindo should do, Pak? Thank you very much, Pak Iskandar. This is my last question.
Uh-huh. Technology, yeah, I think technology is very important right now. For example, yeah, in container yard, yeah, if they are using technology, yeah, because they can use several types of technology, so they will know where to put the its container, its place, and they can get it back very easy, yeah. But if they are using old technology, yeah, then it will take time. Yeah, that's the main problem what we are facing right now. The efficiency of the harbor is not so very good. So that's one example. Yeah, and I think for toll roads, as I mentioned just before, yeah, I think they have to use the contactless toll gates. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Pak Iskandar. Now it's the time for our participants. Pak Iskandar, it's already 171 participants, joining this conference. And I will give one or two questions to the floor, Pak, before we move on. Okay. Participants, yeah, please. You have questions for Pak Iskandar Abu Bakar. Please take the chance for directly asking Pak Iskandar. Maybe in Bahasa also okay, yeah, silakan. In Bahasa also fine. Mumpung ada kesempatan. Bapak Ibu. Halo, bisa dengar? Halo. Pak Iskandar, I would like to also introduce some of our students already attending.
Yeah.
So they may ask for some questions, Pak Iskandar.
Okay. My name is Rintar. I am from University of Papua. How to strategy about to connection in Papua, because your price sensitive is very big compared in island Java. So how to strategy? Please your answer to and planning and in this year. Thank you very much.
Can I answer directly or?
Silakan Pak Iskandar. Please, Pak.
I think for Papua the main problem is the island is very big. Yeah, the infrastructure is not enough. Yeah, and the demand is quite low. Yeah, that's the main problem. And I think what is being done right now is how to connect, to make new roads. Yeah, in Papua Island. Yeah, and right now the important modes of transport is by aviation, by small airships. Yeah, but the problem with airship with aviation that the price is too expensive. Yeah, so we have to look for a better solution. And I think for the better transportation system, how to reduce the cost is actually by building new roads, yeah, and developing ports along the beach of Papua. So short sea shipping could be an answer for cities which is connected to seaports, but roads is very important, yeah, to go to the inner side of the Papua Island. And as you know, right now, the government is still building new roads, yeah, especially from to Wamena, yeah, from Jayapura. And I think if that is already connected well, it's already connected actually, but if it's already connected well, then the prices will go down in the inner side of Papua Island.
Thank you very much for the question and answer, Pak Iskandar. Pak, there is one more question from the floor, Pak, before I move to Professor Aaron. The gentleman would like to ask the fast train line from Bandung, Pak. It's allowed load how many passengers during the pandemic COVID-19, and how long does it take from Jakarta to Bandung, Pak? Thank you very much, Pak Iskandar.
For the high-speed train.
Yes, Pak.
High-speed train is actually planned when I was the acting Secretary General of the Ministry of Transportation. Yeah, when Chinese team came to Jakarta and mentioned what projects is important in Indonesia, I mentioned to them Jakarta Bandung is the highest, yeah, not Jakarta Surabaya. Yeah, many people are thinking Jakarta Surabaya will be a highest demand, but according to we have an origin and destination study, the highest desire line is from Jakarta to Bandung. So that's why I'm proposing Jakarta Bandung. Yeah, and seems to be they follow up with the and come out with the project. Yeah, from Jakarta to Bandung by high-speed train. It's expensive. Yeah, of course it's expensive. The demand, the travel time will be approximately 45 minutes from Jakarta to Bandung. So it will be very important. And to give a better impact to the railway company, yeah, the new high-speed railway company, then it is very important to get non-core businesses together with the rail business. So they are given a certain land to develop. Yeah, so they will get the non-core business funding from the other businesses beside the railway. So they have the opportunity to build several areas and between Jakarta and Bandung. Yeah, so with new they will build a new city. Yeah, near Bandung. Yeah, so they build a new city, then it will reduce the travel cost. As you know, right now in Japan, for example, not Shinkansen, but Shibuya. Yeah, not Shibuya. Forgot the name. They have several railway lines that the core business is actually the railway, but the non-core business income is much higher from the non-core businesses, yeah, including the station development, yeah, land use around the station. So there will be TOD, transport-oriented development system. Yeah, same will be done in Jakarta, Bandung.
All right, thank you, Pak Iskandar.
You're welcome.
Pak, one more question, Pak, from the floor, because there are so many questions, but let us select one. This is the question, Pak, for your last answer. The tall C idea from our President Jokowi is a very good solution for Indonesians' transportation, but the response of the user, Pak, is not as good as expected. What do you think, Pak Iskandar? Because you are the expert on this.
As I mentioned to you, it's too expensive. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So I think what they can do is actually, yeah, how to utilize, yeah, not only from the core business, from the toll revenue, but they have to get revenues from other sources. Yeah. So land development will be important. Yeah. As you know right now, there is an LRT building. They are building several lines of LRTs. Yeah, and the LRTs will be connected with a transit-oriented development around the station. Yeah, so they will get the money not from the transport, but from the real from the land around the stations. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think for the toll roads, they have to look at solution how to develop the area around the toll roads, probably building industrial areas with a good connection, because toll road is a good connection. Yeah. So if they do that, yeah, they can reduce their costs, and if they reduce the tariff, then the demand will be higher. Yeah, so I think that will be important for development of toll roads in Indonesia. So they can not only get the money from the toll roads, but on the other hand, they have also to look at cheaper solutions, of course. Yeah, because for example, the LRT, what they are building right now, they build it average, the whole system elevated. Yeah, the main problem is elevated is that the price is 2.2 much higher than if they build it on ground. Yeah, so they get not a cheap solution, but they get an expensive solution, and they have to get back the money. Yeah, otherwise they will lose. Yeah, and I think without a good management, I think it's very difficult.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Iskandar Abu Bakar, for your time. Okay, we will continue with our next speaker, Professor Aaron. And Pak Iskandar, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Everyone, please give our big applause to Pak Iskandar Abu Bakar, Master of Science. Thank you, Pak Iskandar. Thank you very much. Okay, without any further delay, I would like to introduce our next speaker, the distinguished Professor Aaron Okes. Is going to move fast because having another appointment. He has his Doctor of Philosophy from University of New England, Master of Business from Queensland University of Technology, QUT, and Bachelor of Commerce in Griffith University. I'm very much, interested to look at his articles. It's more than 100 articles, including, of course, not including books, and it's listed in the Australian Business Dean's Council. So, Professor Aaron, without any further delay, please, your time, Professor Aaron. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Augustinus. Today, I wanted to work my way through some what I think are critical challenges facing marketing. And in particular, if you think about entrepreneurship, if we can invent, create, or come up with an idea, one needs to commercialize that idea. That brings marketing into the focus. So today I wanted to work through what do we mean when we use the term marketing strategy? What are some of the grand challenges facing marketing strategy? and an emerging notion of what's being referred to as the 3Ds: digital, data, and developing. And that leads us through to a notion of what do we mean by marketing excellence and marketing agility, and particularly in the context of branding and hyperconnectivity with growing use of various digital platforms. So across the next 45 minutes or so, I'll move across these particular areas and then try and bring them back together in terms of when we use marketing strategy, what is it really all about? How effective are we? And how efficient can we be at developing and implementing strategy? So marketing strategy really is quite a simple concept. So one wonders then, why is it so elusive? It really just pertains to how firms make decisions and implement those decisions focused on creating value for stakeholders. And our primary stakeholder that we often refer to in marketing is the customer. And what we mean by that is, how do we create value that is both sustainable and gives us a differential advantage from our competitors? It's all about how we position ourselves in terms of that strategy. So if you look at the views of Morgan, which is a very simple definition of marketing strategy, encompassing firm actions, implementation, value creation, and differential advantage, as well as the Varadarajan definition much earlier about an integrated pattern of decisions about how we make crucial choices about products, markets, marketing activities. Those two definitions, while differing in their complexity, still cover a very basic notion of it's all about those decisions that bring the organization into its interface with its customers. So marketing strategy is very simple, but incredibly elusive to develop and implement successfully. So if we start to think about some of the grand challenges that marketing strategy scholars and practitioners are facing or should be actually addressing, we would see that marketing scholarship, what we do inside universities, sits or remains very comfortably in a very small confine. It attaches itself very well to its historical or current boundaries. It rarely ceases to push those boundaries and extend them. And it really relies on a series of mainstream assumptions. Particular theories are constantly drawn on, particular research methodologies are employed that reinforce, not challenge our thinking. They constrain advancements in terms of marketing strategy and its contribution to both scholarship and practice. My particular view is that if marketing scholars cannot contribute to practice, we have a significant problem. So the problem with marketing really is that, like many scientific disciplines or communities, it has the trappings of what Kuhn referred to as normal science. It's predicated or based on specific assumptions that the marketing community knows what the world is like. We understand what the world is, we know how it operates. So therefore that gives us this overarching willingness to defend those assumptions. And if necessary, marketing scholars often defend those assumptions at considerable cost. And in reality, what this is doing is giving us a tendency to suppress novelty, suppress innovation in our thinking and in our practices. And it's really subversive to the basic commitments of broadening the boundaries of marketing scholarship. So what I'm alluding to here is that we have some significant problems that if we're going to move marketing scholarship in terms of its strategy platform beyond the bounds of research in universities out into practice, we need to understand what is limiting those bounds. So marketing has a significant problem in these grand challenges in terms of its fragmentation within and of marketing. Problematically for us is that the forces within marketing academia, and often when I use that terminology, I mean ourselves as scholars, as teachers, as educators, we are again limiting our innovativeness in our thinking. And that limits the types of problems that we are trying to address for the societies that we live in, the universities that we work for, the businesses that we engage in. We often will set up what I'd refer to as training silos. They keep us focused on similar types of problems, similar types of methodologies, and particularly similar types of theories being applied to solve those problems over time and in different settings. And when I use the term settings, I mean developing versus developed economies, which is a particular challenge currently in marketing strategy. So we really have this self-limiting tendency where we read the same journals, we attend the same conferences, and when we have seminars within our institutions, we often invite like-minded speakers. They tend to confirm or conform to our expectations, not challenge us. So again, this is a significant problem where we must break those boundaries down. So what we have here is that beliefs about marketing are considered the boundaries or domains that we operate in, or what constitutes theory and rigor. And by rigor, I mean the scientific methods we apply to solve problems. We start to get limited by the reviewers that we submit our work to and the editors in the journals that we seek to publish in. So in reality, it's quite easy to see how we all might become a bit stuck or possess core rigidities. We get stuck in the ways of thinking that are well established. We rarely try to break outside of those particular boundaries. So in respect, these grand challenges focus on technological and the digital revolution that's occurring or has been occurring for about the last decade. It's having a particular influence in the sense that it's transforming and challenging marketing practice. If you talk to practitioners, they face the daily challenge of how to master the increasing wide-ranging platform of technologies that are influencing their organizations and how they practice marketing. It's also influencing how consumers behave, increasing reliance on mobile applications to communicate with each other, to communicate with organizations and purchase products. This is really increasing quite dramatically the competitive dynamics or the turbulence that's occurring within marketplaces. And it's particularly creating new policies and societal challenges. We have major problems in many countries with issues about Facebook, social media, organizations that misuse our data and the way they use technology to track us, to understand our purchase patterns. Problematically, this means the world's economic, social, and political problems need a proactive, purposeful marketing thought and scholarship. That's where we as academics come into the picture, and why we need to break down these boundaries. Because we have not only a duty to our institutions, but we have a duty to the societies that we practice our craft within, to support and enhance, not just help organizations make more money. So in many respects, these dynamic changes present us with unprecedented opportunities. Marketing scholars can create new and relevant knowledge to contribute to this growing range of particular problems that our stakeholders are facing. These include the students that we educate, the businesses that we should or could be engaging with, and the societies that our practices and principles impact on. This is a key challenge that we've got to keep focused on. If anybody chooses to go to the internet, jump on Google and do a search for marketing challenges, you will come up with hundreds and hundreds of lists of what consultants or organizations and societies believe are the key marketing challenges. What I've got here today is just a sample of 3 that I found with a quick search. One presents what it determines as the 20 most significant challenges facing marketing practice, from declining organic reach, broadening and recognizing brand names, Brexit influenced marketing results, budgets, personalizing the consumer experience. They all have many common themes, but those additional points come from the particular lens of the organization or the association. There is a common pattern amongst these challenges in the sense that how does marketing strategy contribute to the return on investment for the marketing dollar that organizations are investing? Overarching all these challenges, it often boils down to that return on investment and the resources organizations can or should be contributing to marketing. So if we start to think about the current trend that's been occurring over the last decade or so, often referred to as the 3Ds, this is evolving and having a major impact on marketing strategy. It's the digital revolution, the overwhelming amounts of data that are available, and the growing influence or role in the global economy of developing markets. But in reality, the old isn't going away. It's not dead. And what we shouldn't be doing is using the analogy of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because we have new modern technologies, it doesn't mean the old ways of marketing, where you see organizations advertising on TV. That old is merging with the new, and people and strategists who fixate on the new will end up making significant mistakes. For example, one of the major television campaigns that's occurring in Australia at the moment is eBay. eBay is an electronic platform, but it still relies heavily on television to create traffic to its website. All these e-platforms, e-business models still require conventional marketing to create traffic to them. So that's why my point, do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what is digital marketing strategy? How does it play a role? It's where we start to talk about web analytics, the social media, mobile platforms, the creation of online brand communities, where the strategist develops a specific set of actions that help differentiate and create sustainable value for customers, but importantly also for the organization or the brand. Any value that is created for the customer must be appropriated back by the organization. Otherwise, that organization ceases to be profitable. So digital marketing has created and is creating major change in the landscape or balance of power and influence within markets. Not only does it enrich the way firms employ and build relationships with its customers, it also empowers how customers, through those opportunities to interact with the firms and each other, influence what the market is like. So it's creating this multiplicity of communication and interactions that many organizations are challenged to try and control or even to understand. So the digital revolution is something that many marketing strategists are struggling with. Not only is it influencing the customer, but the customer can now influence the organization in a much more rapid time frame than historically would have occurred. You know when there are problems when cartoonists start to create cartoons about the problems in marketing. And if you just study this cartoon, it's a classic example of the overwhelming notion of digital. Now that we've invested in this marketing tech stack, what's the ROI? That's a good question for the new analytics tool that we should buy. And yes, for the new layer of data visualization. Many organizations cease to focus on broad strategy and attempt to become specialists in very narrow areas. I was talking to an organization only this week who has a fixation on what they've referred to as their digital war room. What about the rest of the marketing strategy that you're now forgetting about is a key puzzle that I have. So digital is important, but it is not the only mechanism that organizations should focus on. The other issue that is very prominent within academia and industry at the moment is the growth in available data. So what we have is a very data-rich environment that is being created by the digital revolution. So digital marketing has made available to researchers and firms an unprecedented amount and types of data on both how their competitors are behaving and how their customers are behaving. We see all the time organizations scraping social media platforms to understand how their consumers and their competitors' consumers are behaving. So in this sense, data is very broad and has a multiplicity of natures. It's quite structured. It can be numerical data on particular purchase patterns, prices paid, where people are buying, but it also includes the firm's digital marketing interventions. When a firm now engages in a marketing action, it can more quickly capture data on the responses that those actions have created in terms of, for example, shifting customers from one touch point in the marketplace to another. So data is also very unstructured. And before I spoke about scraping websites, getting text to analyze what customers are saying about the organization, how they're responding emotionally. Organizations also now capture through things like their online brand communities, through Facebook and other social media platforms, huge amounts of text, audio, video, and pictures. And strategists can analyze that to create significant insight that helps them. So what we have with the advent of this growth or digital frame of reference makes some marketers, not all, some marketers now are better able to harness and to acquire this data, to expand and retain their marketplace presence, grow their customer base, and even create new customers. Remember, Porter once said, the key for any business is innovation and to create a customer. But the problem we now face is it's not a level playing field. Large organizations, by their huge resource base, can now gather more data, have more influence in the marketplace than ever before, often to the detriment of the smaller and medium-sized organizations in many marketplaces. So this is why I said early on, there is a social implication for marketing strategy, just beyond the profit parameters that many organizations talk about. This is evidenced again with a classic example of a cartoon. Let's solve this problem by using the big data none of us have the slightest idea what to do with. And when I talk to many marketers, many CMOs and directors of marketing, they are overwhelmed with the volume of data that is at their disposal. They struggle to understand how to take that data to create information that generates marketing insight. And if data is useful, it is only useful that it helps us create insight about markets. The third D in the 3D evolution is developing. So developing markets and marketing in the digital data-rich environment are very relevant because marketing is a context-based functional discipline. So if you think of the many regions around the globe, the BRICS economies, the MENA economies, the ASEAN economies, these are captured by that notion of emerging or developing markets. And as nearly a decade ago, Sheth commented that marketing is a context-driven discipline. It operates within the context of what that theory or problem is based on. And it's often adapted to developing specific constructs or schools of thought around evolving marketplaces. And importantly, the third D of the 3D revolution is about developing markets because in many respects, they're the growth engines of the global economy. Over the last decade or so, much of what's happening in global growth is coming from these emerging markets in the BRICS and MENA regions. They continue to gain a share of the global economy, but they are also creating major challenges. Think about your own city, your own country where you're from, and you'll see these challenges manifesting in growths in pollution, in waste, in heavy resource usage by certain industries. So growth in the global economy poses many challenges that marketers are not working to address. And I believe we must start to address those challenges that in effect our strategies that bolster consumption, boast the desire to have more new cars, new phones. We have a particular desire to understand that, but we also have a role to play in addressing the implications of those negative impacts that marketers and entrepreneurs are creating. Okay, so in effect, what's the big deal then? Marketing strategy, as I said from the beginning, is a very simple construct. It's a simple activity, a phenomenon that lies at the center or heart of strategic marketing, and it's central to marketing practice. It's also the area that many of the most pressing current and future challenges identified by CMOs exist. What do I mean by that? If we start to think about some of the burning questions being raised, these can relate to how to create organizational structures that better enable the development of marketing strategies, that help navigate and adapt to the changing customer and firm needs. Marketers must play a role in contributing to what should the organizational structure be that helps us connect better with our markets, our stakeholders. Another burning question could be about how to choose the optimal set of marketing strategies to drive outcomes, given competing priorities, lack of resources, the myriad of internal and external stakeholders that marketing must navigate and interface with. How to lead firm-wide executives, not just marketing executives, but how do you lead from a marketing strategy point of view, your logistics, your production, your research and development, in developing and implementing strategies that create greater customer centricity and engagement with the customer? How do the organization, not just the marketing department, put the customer at the center of whatever it is doing? So with its centrality to practice, marketing strategy is a key area of business school pedagogy. That's why universities exist or have business schools or business faculties. It's also pivotal to marketing theory explanations of how firms perform, how marketing activities will increase return on investment, grow market share, help the organization make more profit. And it's a major area of inquiry and teaching for academics. But sadly, it's often taught poorly. It saddens me to see many marketing strategy units in universities still fixating on SWOT analyses. These are old school approaches. We need to be more contemporary in how we teach our students about marketing strategy and how to implement marketing strategy. So marketing strategy is really about doing what versus doing it or implementing it, the what and the how type philosophy that we might implement. So the literature distinguishes between strategy formulation and implementation. And what it really suggests is that they are actually interdependent. They are not separate activities. So an inappropriate strategy will still lead to inappropriate implementation is the key takeaway. So what the firm is able to do in the sense of shaping and constraining its marketing strategy content decisions over time become a key focus of marketing strategy. And when I use the term strategy formulation, it's really what about marketing managers or that top management team are doing in terms of what decisions are we making regarding the goals or broad means that we want to try and accomplish in terms of our target market, our value offering, our positioning, our launch of new products, etc. So marketing strategy is underpinned by asking and focusing on what should we be doing. The implementation element revolves around the doing it, or converting that into the what should we do. So in reality, what we're trying to do is focus on a set of detailed and integrated tactics that emanate and come from our marketing strategy. These must and should be accompanied with appropriate resources and particular actions that help us enact the strategy. And that's where marketing often faces a particular challenge inside organizations in terms of the resource allocations that it is given, particularly in an environment where marketers are now required more heavily to show the value of those investments in returns from the customer to the organization. So if we start to think about marketing strategy, it raises particular questions about marketing excellence. And the question I would frame is, so who cares about marketing strategy and why care? Interest in marketing excellence is growing. So if you look at business press, over the past decade, there has been a 68% growth in the notion or reference to marketing excellence. Firms, when they're providing reports to the market, those investor reports increasingly show references to marketing excellence, and that's grown by over 100%. Yet enacting or exercising marketing excellence and showing our investors the value of our marketing activities is a major challenge. And the Chief Marketing Officer survey, the CMO survey, most recently shows that marketing excellence in terms of its effectiveness or outcomes has stayed relatively flat since the early 2013s. So while there has been a growing focus on marketing excellence, our performance is lagging that focus. So think about the CMO report that IBM published just 2 years ago. It showed that the top managers that it surveyed, 67% felt unable to clearly show or demonstrate to the financial markets or their investors how their marketing activities created growth in shareholder value. Research also indicates that excellence is a strategy-like activity about firms' superior ability to perform essential, and pick up the notion they're essential, customer-facing activities, and that execution occurs during the marketing strategy process. The key challenge that many organizations are facing is what are those essential elements that they should be good at, raising the question of the broad versus narrow marketing strategy. How do they determine which of those essential customer-facing activities will create the most return on their investment? So the key issues for stakeholders in terms of the scholars and the practitioners, and by practitioners I mean those in that top management team, the CMOs, the marketing directors, are the challenges that not specified are the content areas that managers should focus on. What are those essential activities, those essential strategy elements, which leaves a very significant gap in our knowledge? Where should managers apply the right elements within the marketing organization? What resources are required? How and when should they be deployed are key challenges. This occurs because there's a very significant lack of evidence regarding the value of those investments. Many agencies, for example, still focus on simple indices of performance like customer awareness, customer attitudes. They don't focus on the hard financial data that shows that advertising campaign, that social media campaign created X return in dollars. So this is really compounded by a growing complexity of the technology available to markets and customers, and in particularly what domains the marketer chooses to emphasize in terms of its marketing strategy. So what can we do? What do marketers really say? So what we're focusing on now particularly is a growth in this notion of ecosystems. You will hear that terminology employed in digital marketing. What's our ecosystem? So many managers and practitioners now highlight the importance of configuring the organization for marketing excellence, demonstrating that return on investment. And they do this when focusing on systems of networks for organic growth. Marketing systems, or the ecosystems, are a priority because they allow the firm a growing platform. It's a means of growing the business by developing relationships or systems of networks where the total is more than the sum of its individual components. So that system or the ecosystem adds value to the total marketplace in terms of relationships that are being fostered. This notion of ecosystems is really grounded in concepts that come from the alliance and partnership literature, but it's extending these ideas in terms of their conceptual scope and level of complexity, because ecosystems are not simple functioning systems. They are quite complex. They have multiple stakeholders that each have different strength of ties, different roles in that ecosystems. So in this sense, many organizations, when they're focusing on building their ecosystems, focus on what's referred to as the proximal and distal networks. Proximal meaning close within the certain boundaries, within my knowledge network. Distal means more outside, further away. So they focus on what networks and ecosystems can we build with like-minded, similar types of entities or organizations, but also to develop better knowledge, better integration and competitive capacity. They need to look outside those proximal domains to more distal domains, those further away, outside their own sector, for example. The other thing that's really relevant to proximal and distal networks is focusing on forming systems of relationships within the supply chain. So marketing now plays an increasing role in the totality of the supply chain, those vertical relationships and those outside the supply chain in terms of horizontal relationships. And in effect, these types of relationships create novel value. They help create opportunities that are unrelated to the current value chain. They create new opportunities because they're pushing the organization beyond its comfort zone, beyond its current boundaries. And it's in those extensions of the organization boundaries where new business opportunities or business models can come to fruition and help the organization. So again, if we focus on what can we do, what do marketers say, engaging with the end user is particularly vital. And that's why early on I referred to this notion of customer centricity, stakeholder centricity. And it includes activities related to building interfaces with the final customer. And think about a supply chain. It has multiple stakeholders involved. I can be a business-to-business organization and deal with many other intermediaries before my offering gets to the final consumer. So when we start to think about the presence of diverse end user interfaces, we need specific channels to reach those. And we need those specific channels because they create personalized touch points. They help us create a seamless journey. Every time a consumer touches the brand in a physical store, in an online website or a mobile application, the consumer needs to have a consistent and similar experience. So those personalized, seamless journeys are quite important. And that's why the supply chain becomes vital from a marketing strategy point of view. It also helps us create a dialogue of enforcing instruments. And by that I mean the digital revolution is allowing us to create online forums, chat rooms, personalized offerings, because it allows us to be in more places simultaneously than the old forms of marketing did. So it allows us to have communication 24/7 with our consumers. That digital revolution also allows us to track the customer journey much more accurately. We know where certain consumers are buying. We know what time they're there because organizations now have the capacity to track the customer. It allows us to create much more personal personas, unique need profiles for consumers, which creates this tailored approach that many markets crave for. Some examples to reinforce the point. A senior marketing executive from an industrial or B2B organization stated, as a B2B supplier, we need to gain access to the end user. This does not mean we will be a B2C company, a business to consumer company. However, access includes being able to gather data about the behaviors and diverse specific needs. Then we can monetize these insights, incorporating them into our products. So the key notion there is by dealing with the end consumer, even if you're an industrial organization, you can start to better understand that end consumer's needs and you can monetize that more, thus creating this return investment in terms of marketing excellence, proving the value of marketing. Again, another marketing executive on a B2B global supplier, we have to be able to find completely new solutions or business models that exceed our current competencies. So again, pushing the boundaries. We are good at these things now, but we need to be good at other things that maybe are not even on the horizon. So we need to develop new market-based competencies in this digital environment. This marketing executive, looking at how they seize opportunities, says, in my view, marketing is more than just defining the product itself, but more like selling a car versus selling mobility. Do I earn money by selling a compressor, or am I selling compressed air? So marketing, in my view, has to take a much more holistic view regarding the business models that organizations seek to create and implement. So if we're starting to facilitate and understand the 3Ds, we need to start to think about marketing excellence in terms of organizational agility. And that's why I said early on that marketers need to contribute to what is the optimum organizational structure. So facilitating agile marketing focuses on the activities related to fostering fast and efficient decisions within the marketing organization, but also in the organization-wide sense. How can marketing work with logistics, production, etc., to be more agile, to cope with the rapid evolution that's occurring in many markets? And this was summed up by a general manager in an electronics company who said, typically, sales was screening the market. Then sales briefed marketing, which consequently created comms material, which then had to be discussed and revised, etc., etc. So what this says is those layers and complexities in the organization slowed the organization down. And by the time it responded to that changing need, the market had already evolved again. So this creates particular problems in terms of marketing needs to contribute to organizational agility. Oh, I skipped over one. So if we start to think about it over an extended period, brands have become the prominent focus or the significant focus of both academic scholarship and practitioners. In effect, you could use the analogy, it's all about the brand. We're building brands, we're creating brand meaning. So branding has moved from a small academic research area, occasionally studied, to be a much more major concern for both business and society and academics. Most institutions that teach marketing or new venture marketing will significantly talk about branding, okay? Brands are really omnipresent, and all brands compete for the limited attention that consumers have, but they're competing not only within their product category, but with new brand identities, new platforms. Airbnb is a very strong, powerful brand. It's dealing with direct-to-consumer brands. Warby and Parker, smart brands. Google Nest is a classic smart brand. It's competing with branded ideas, the hashtag #MeToo. Many of these ideas are gaining reputation as very strong brands. So the multiplicity and the complexity of a brand is not simple anymore. So consumer interactions with brands are also changing, and it's changing because of the digital revolution. We now can access our brands 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and those brands can access us too. I take my brand with me in my mobile application, on my computer. Wherever I am, I can access my brand. I can keep up with its story. I can participate in a brand community. So because of that connectedness, that creates in this digital revolution, massive amounts of data that are key to appropriate strategies. What I'm alluding to is this notion of hyperconnectivity. Everyone is connected. Think of yourself. How often do you walk down the street and you'll have your face in your mobile phone? Or you'll see other people who are sitting on the bus, not talking to each other, walking down the street, not talking to each other, but they got their face in their mobile phone. This is part of this phenomena of wanting to be connected all the time, okay? So it's coming from this proliferation of networks, of devices and other entities that create a constant volume of information, a constant accessing of social media and digital platforms. And this is regardless of time or location. I can catch the bus home if I was a public transport user, and on my way home, I might order dinner. I might go to a site and buy a new pair of shoes. I can do anything through my mobile device. So brands in this sense are shifting away from the firm owns the brands, to a community owns the brands. So it's talking about a shared philosophy of ownership. And in many respects, some brands are captive to the customer taking ownership of the brand too much. They can influence that brand more now than historically in the past. So the brand ownership ceases to be from the brand point of view, the brand organization, to the stakeholders who are interacting with that particular brand. So it's really blurring the boundaries of who owns the brand, who's controlling the destiny of that brand, who's controlling the reputation and influence of that brand. So many organizations will engage in an activity, they'll use Facebook or another social platform to promote that activity, and many customers will become angry, frustrated, upset, and push back against that by voicing their concerns, their frustration with the brand's behavior. So again, there's this dialogue or interaction between the brand owner and the brand user. That's also allowing brands to expand their geographic boundaries. Think about the brands coming out from many emerging economies. Historically, everyone aspired and were buying Western European brands. Many Asian brands are very, very successful and are seen as the most valued brands in the world. Samsung and other brands coming out of South Korea, etc., are now very, very highly valued brands. So what does branding in this era of hyperconnectivity really mean? So it's really, as I said, characterized by the people and the devices where we all constantly interact. I see my brand has done something. I jump on my mobile and I keep up to date with its activity. So this is coming because of three key aspects: availability of information, the speed that that information can be disseminated, the sophistication of networks of people using those devices, the growth in the number of platforms. There is constantly, day by day, new platforms coming out that are all targeting consumers to start to use those platforms. But it's also coming because of device-device connectivity, meaning we are more connected in this hyper-connected world than ever before. So traditionally, brands were methods where we designed a brand for a particular world in which customers were exposed and influenced by the firm. It was often communicated the brand from a television or print point of view or radio advertising. That still exists. And as I said at the outset, even organizations like eBay and Uber advertise on TV because they must draw traffic from multiple touch points. But today, as information has become more widely accessible and available across multiple channels or multiple touch points, consumers are also scattered in the sense that they can devote appropriate attention to the multiple platforms. I think if we all opened up our mobile phones, we would probably have many, many dozens of mobile applications on those. We'd probably all have Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., all on our devices. And these are all drawing on our attention and our capacity to engage with the brands that are connected to those applications. So while that's a problem, it's given marketers the ability to co-create brand meaning. But as I said, often that brand meaning can be hijacked by certain segments in the marketplace, and it can be quite detrimental to the brand itself when hijacked by the wrong group. I'll skip a bit because I'm mindful of the time. So what I'm focusing on here today is often people will refer to strategy or marketing strategy as war. In my view, marketing strategy is more like chess. And if you think about chess, a chessboard has around 9 million moves on it. And marketing is similar to that. What I do in the marketplace with my brand will be responded to by my competitors. And like chess, a marketing strategist needs to foresee what those moves by competitors might be. So it's not like war. It's not like joining the dots. It's like a game of chess. So every minor or small detail in a brand strategy has the potential to impact the relative position of not only that brand implementing that strategy, but the relative position of every competitor in that particular marketplace. But what marketing strategists and academics are often doing is falling back into the comfortable zone. Those core rigidities come to the surface, and we don't encourage interrogating the specifics of a particular brand or its situation to find the best or most efficient move. We often implement what we've historically done over and over and over again. So that leads us to not playing chess per se, but leading to one move at a time philosophy, where we're not trying to strategically get ahead of the moves our competitors will make. We make a move, we wait to see what the competitor does, we make another move. First, we're trying to jump ahead of our competition. So in reality, what we've seen now is many organizations focus on very narrow strategy, a very heavy reliance on Facebook or other social media platforms to the detriment of a broader approach to strategy. How many times and how many examples could we find if we went out into the social media domain where we find organizations captivated erroneously by social media strategies? And this is captured in this classic example here, again in a simple cartoon which shows, hey, this is not a simple isolated instance. We're creating more content than our audience can actually consume. oh, that's a good topic for our next blog post, white paper, infographic, listicle, and animated GIF. So we create so much information inside organizations and we're overwhelming the customer, but we can't stop doing that. It's like we've been captivated by the capacity to do this so readily. The other example here would be that the organization has created a brand and it's pushed its lug nuts out on social media. I don't know what's wrong. We posted our brand of lug nut to every social media site and no one is talking about us. Must be a technical error. Oh, we do have 5 fans, or that's the 5 of us. So again, creating this volume of information that we often don't study carefully to see if it's having a real strategic impact, a real return on that investment. So my final points when thinking about strategizing would be, how do we start to think about making sense and decisions in turbulent, evolving marketing landscapes? How do we as marketing strategists and budding entrepreneurs focus on everything versus a few things strategically? Being good at everything versus a few things operationally. And the key thing I would look at here is think and look before you leap into action.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aaron. If you don't mind, Professor Aaron, of course, we have some questions and we're going to limit that because of your time limitation. Yeah. Professor Aaron, I remember one textbook. Well, this is a very fundamental on marketing strategy. Maybe you, of course, you know ENSOF matrix as one of the, let's say, famous tool that many companies are still using that until today. For example, market penetration, market development, product development, and especially diversification. In regards to, let's say, digital branding or the digital marketing today, do you think it is still relevant for the companies today? Professor Aaron?
I think by the time we start to implement those tools that were created probably 4 or 5 decades ago, it's the same with the PIMS, profit impact on marketing strategy analogies, etc. The trouble is they were created environments where competition was fairly stable. There was limited competitors in every market, and the complexity of those markets was quite simple. I think organizations that adhere to those are really operating in an outdated mindset. They create an organizational structure that doesn't allow them to respond in an agile fashion because they're about building differentiation. They're about building cost leadership, which takes a long time. And then the market's moved on by the time they've got there. So I think it's quite problematic thinking. And it's quite problematic that often we still use those techniques to teach to the neglect of more contemporary approaches.
All right. So let's say now we have like entrepreneurial finance, for example. Is it also relevant for entrepreneurial marketing?
I think the key thing, so for example, there would be very few institutions globally, if we look at the education of potential marketers, that would pick up on the marketing finance interface, which starts to bring in that marketing excellence, marketing agility. It's the same. Many entrepreneurial programs don't teach commercialization. They focus on very macro level issues, but they don't teach a budding entrepreneur. Once you've invented or got your idea, how do you commercialize it? How do you build a brand with limited resources? You are starting scratch, nothing. From day one, how do you build brand reputation? Because reputation means you can gain more assets. But how do you do that? So issues about causation versus effectuation need to be taught much more deeply to guide entrepreneurs in what mindset might I create.
Yeah, I remember my experience, Professor Aaron. I was working for a multinational company. I was the chief marketing officer. You know, the owner called me in the evening, you know. he asked me as simple as this. Pak Nicholas, what is your sales this month? That's the, very simple question from the owner, but it's very deep to answer that, So yeah, you're right. We have to be excellent, but sometimes, as you also said, that turbulence, it will affect your businesses, regardless your industry. So now the point is, let's say if you are focusing on strategies, what is actually the strategy that we have to use, to really satisfy the answer of the owner? Professor M, maybe you can give your inputs, because you were also the consultant in Johnson & Johnson, right?
I've done quite a lot of consultancies from political parties through to pharmaceutical companies. Right. And it does vary depending on the sector. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a sales manager of a major pharmaceutical company, one of the biggest pharma companies globally. And they've discovered a problem that their business models are outdated. They don't have up-to-date technology. So this is $1 trillion company. They've also discovered much more minor, simple problems. For example, they offer within the hospital networks and medical sector multiple products. And a salesperson can turn up to the hospital today and try and sell a piece of equipment, some contrast, etc. And another salesperson from the same company will turn up to the same hospital tomorrow. So it's inefficient, it's not a good return on the investment because it fragments what the organization should be doing, which is solving that hospital's problems. So many organizations have moved to what's referred to as servitization. They don't make money from the product, they make money from after they've sold the product by helping that organization be more effective, more efficient, or it making more money. So again, it's hard to generalize about what organizations should be doing, how they should build their brand, because markets are so different. There's no common, simple recipe. And that's why the strategy is so key. Applying generic principles becomes quite problematic.
All right, thank you, Professor. Maybe one more question from the floor, Professor Allen. We know you have your very tight schedule today. This is the question, Professor Allen. If we are about to enter a red ocean market, again, what kind of marketing strategy that we need to highlight or focus on?
I think it depends again on the particular sector that you're talking about. So while we talk about blue ocean, red ocean, etc., I think they're very rudimentary principles that again create a misconception about the complexity. And many organizations have actually prospered in the current climate. So I don't know if you're following, for example, some of the platforms that allow customers to buy products without credit cards, like Afterpay, which is a particular payment mechanism. Its share price has gone up nearly 2,000% in the current climate, which is quite bizarre. Many technology products are booming. The sales of simple things like the platform we're using today, Zoom, have skyrocketed. Others have struggled. But there's one thing that I believe for sure. I'm not a doomsayer in terms of a red ocean market in terms of the global sphere. I think human nature says we will get back to what we were before very, very rapidly, as evidenced by what happens as soon as economies break down their health restrictions. What is happening? People are back out to restaurants, holiday resorts, beaches, etc. I think we're not on the verge of a red ocean. I think we will move very rapidly back to what we were before because it's ingrained in our psyche that we are social creatures. We have grown now with the younger generation having access to finance, travel, etc. So I think the markets will pick up very, very quickly again.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question, Prof. Aaron, from our marketing student. They are also joining this conference. Regarding business branding, I believe that branding is very critical now, that many small businesses are emerging and trying to differentiate themselves from the other. I personally, as an owner of a small business, but one interested in the idea of controversial marketing, or shock advertising. What do you think about that, Professor Aaron?
So I think the dilemma that, as I said, it's like a new venture. They're starting, they have no reputation, no brand image. A small enterprise is often in a similar position. It competes in a very small geographic market. If it has a technology capacity, it can extend that boundary of that market more because of its ability to compete on the internet, but it does need a very strong brand presence. So the key for branding is, what should your brand persona be? Why does the customer care about that? But actually developing and delivering on those promises of the brand is key. Many people believe they'll design a logo, they'll create a slogan or whatever, and that's their brand. Because customers can interact with our brands more readily, even if you're a small enterprise, it is the experience the customer walks away with that stays with them. So creating a brand that delivers on its promise and is clearly articulating that promise is the key, whether you're a small entity or a large organization. They fundamentally are the same in the sense of, what does the brand say to the customer? Why does it resonate with the customer?
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Aaron, distinguished professor from Macquarie Business School. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give our big applause to Professor Aaron. Professor Aaron, thank you very much. And we really hope to, you can give more time in the future for our students and our, stakeholders over here. So thank you very much, Professor Aaron.
I'll happily do that, and I'll happily visit. As soon as the boundaries are down, I'll happily visit.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay.
We will have a schedule on that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. So now, ladies and gentlemen, all the participants, we have more than 220 participants today. We would like to continue for the last but not least keynote speaker. The gentleman, Professor Hamid Boshiki, is coming from Sawbridge International School of Business. Professor Hamid has extensive experience in management throughout his 30-year-long teaching and research career, with over 100 academic publications, including books, book chapters, and working papers. And very interesting for me is he co-authored with a Wharton professor, and then the book is published by Pearson Education. So, and he's going to share his knowledge today, his experience in regards to entrepreneurship as a force for the common goal. So, Professor Hamid, please, without any further ado.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Agostinho. I hope you hear and see me well.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, and many thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. I have 3 reasons to be very happy to be with you today and to address your distinguished audience. My first reason is my love of Indonesia. It's a country that I visited. I wish I could spend more time in the country, but it's a country that's really dear to me, and a country that I will visit again as soon as the circumstances will allow it. My second reason is to participate in a conference which is organized by a dear partner of Sawbridge.
All right.
Ciputra and Sawbridge are good and long partners, and we are proud of this partnership, and we're committed to grow it even bigger and further. And third reason for me to rejoice is that I'm speaking about entrepreneurship at a university which put entrepreneurship at the heart of its mission, and which is a private university. And you will see the connection. You see why it's important or noteworthy to highlight entrepreneurship being the core of the mission of a private university. Welcome clear as we move in the talk.
Thank you.
So now I'm just inviting the audience basically to a kind of a journey in entrepreneurship. Compared to Professor Aaron's talk, this one is going to be a little bit more philosophical, probably, and that also it also basically conveys what I think and I believe about the purpose of entrepreneurship. So let me share my presentation. If this is, yeah, so this is, hopefully you can see it full screen.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, so it's always important to say where one speaks from, because yeah, I mean, and I speak from the position of someone who was born in Morocco a long time ago, and Morocco is a country that has a number of common, I think, common traits, common things. With Indonesia, and I'm very actively still very active. I left the country 37 or 30 years ago for France, but I'm still very much involved in the country's development agenda, and I see in Morocco a number of issues and things also in Indonesia. So I'm always seeing parallels there. I'm very much involved in the country's development agenda, and currently I'm serving on a task force appointed by the King of Morocco to review the country's development model and make recommendations. And as you can imagine, entrepreneurship is at the heart of the task force. So this is really something that's going on and that I'm very deeply involved in. I said I moved to France about 38 years ago. And for 30 years, I have been doing research, teaching, and also consulting at ESSEC Business School in France. It's one of the leading business schools in Europe. And I spent 20 years, those 30 years, 20 years promoting entrepreneurship. I created the Entrepreneurship Center at the school. I grew it in a kind of one-stop shop where students can find everything they need to make the leap in entrepreneurship. And along these years, I have also witnessed and I have been part of the convergence, increased convergence between social and mainstream entrepreneurship, which is probably today something that you would call responsible entrepreneurship. And I moved to Korea about a little more than a year ago, to lead the growth of Sobridge International Business School, and I'm trying to bring this perspective on entrepreneurship and broadly on management education to the school. So this is where I speak from, and almost everything I will say will be informed by this background. So let me, if we lose the technical connection or if you have to leave this talk, let me just summarize for you what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say is the following. Indonesia, like many other countries, emerging countries, has achieved remarkable growth as measured by GDP. But it's also a country that's dealing with some serious and persistent social and environmental challenges. I will mention some of them later, but you are in the country and you know better. Interesting thing is that these challenges can neither be solved in the context of emerging countries, not only in Indonesia, and this is also true for Morocco, as I was saying. These challenges cannot be solved neither by government nor by charity alone, and I will elaborate. What I find interesting is that social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurship, as your informed audience knows, social entrepreneurship is not a new thing. It has been around now, perhaps as a social movement, so to speak, for at least 2-3 decades. So social entrepreneurs have shown that social and environmental problems can be addressed through entrepreneurship, but their impact remains limited, including in Indonesia. And I will also comment on this. So now I believe it's time for mainstream Indonesian entrepreneurs and investors to engage with social and environmental problems. I underscore mainstream entrepreneurs and investors, not only social entrepreneurs. And I am calling on these entrepreneurs and investors to design for-profit business models which have social and environmental agendas, goals built in their business model. And I, being an educator and a researcher, I can only, I mean, there's no surprise if I say that universities have a role to play in the promotion of responsible entrepreneurship. So if you bear with me, I will take you through these talks. If you have to leave, at least now you know what I'm about to say. Right. So before we get to back to the Indonesian context, I would like to submit to you that what's going on today is a kind of silent revolution in entrepreneurship, in the conception of entrepreneurship. Very roughly speaking, and at the risk of oversimplifying, I would say that entrepreneurship, as we, some of us at least, the most senior of us, I know that you have a lot of young people in the audience, but people my age grew in the idea that the purpose of entrepreneurship is the pursuit of profit. And as Adam Smith said, if every one of us is pursuing our own profit, then collectively society would be better off and society would benefit from selfish pursuit of profit. This is the invisible hand, right? And this conception of entrepreneurship really was born in the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution. Historians in the audience know that this conception was not accepted by everyone at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and that even in the 19th century, some people believed that the purpose of entrepreneurship and of capitalism could also or should be the common good, but that remained a kind of marginal conception, and some experiments in industrial democracy of those times, mostly in the UK, did not survive, and basically the dominant model has been the selfish pursuit of profit. The selfish pursuit of profit as the main engine of capitalism has achieved remarkable, spectacular results. No need to elaborate, but at the same time, this conception of entrepreneurship has generated huge negative externalities for societies. Social externalities, environmental externalities. You are in Indonesia. I don't need to elaborate on the negative externalities and particularly environmental externalities. You live them. I mean, day to day, if I may say this. So because of these externalities, negative externalities, or the accumulation, let's say, of these externalities have triggered strong reactions from societies. And societies today, and this is true across the world, across the globe, societies are no longer willing to put up with the negative externalities of entrepreneurship. And they are challenging entrepreneurs to show that they, to minimize the negative externalities, to take charge of those, to clean their acts together, and more particularly, or more importantly, to show that the pursuit of profit can also serve the common good. This is what I call the silent revolution in entrepreneurship, and I strongly believe that entrepreneurship in the 21st century will have to, one way or another, will have to bring together the selfish pursuit of profit, because that's a strong engine and that will have to remain there because the alternatives to the capitalism have failed. And we know now, now we know that alternatives to capitalism fail. So we will keep this profit engine, but it has to have a soul, so to speak. It has to serve the common good. So this is basically, I think, what is happening in entrepreneurship, and this is at least my view of the evolution of the entrepreneurship paradigm. Now, back to our context, and to show why responsible entrepreneurship has to be part of the solution. So Indonesia, but like many other emerging countries, is coping with issues, deficits in housing, education, access or quality of healthcare, inclusion. I mean, you have the list on my slide, and no need to belabor the points. These issues are common to many emerging countries. I took some time to look at how these issues are being approached or handled in Indonesia. I see some varying degrees of success in these different areas, which I'm aware of. And the question is, who can address these challenges? The state, well, in emerging countries, the state, I mean, by the state, I mean central and local governments, broadly the public sector. Emerging countries have in common inefficient and underfunded national and local governments. If I go back to my list here, and I am now speaking from Korea, or if I'm speaking from France, the state governments have taken care and have addressed rather effectively a number of these issues. Education, for example, healthcare, housing, water supply, and so on and so forth. But in emerging countries, I submit to you, and I'm happy to be challenged, that the state, the public sector cannot and will never be able to provide these services in number and quality and make them accessible to the great majority of the population. So what do you see in emerging countries? You see some philanthropy, charity, mostly international non-governmental organizations, mostly in Western NGOs. And I also see multinational corporations, including in Indonesia, some multinational corporations, let's say Unilever or, or companies like that, coming also to emerging countries and supporting initiatives, mostly in the social entrepreneurship sector, to deal with this agenda in housing or in education, healthcare, sanitation, energy, you name. But I truly believe that philanthropy cannot and will never be the solution. At best, it can improve. It can improve the living of some small section of the population, which is always good to take. I mean, even if thanks to some NGO, even it's one kid can go to school, just one kid can go to school, that's a benefit. And there's no way to question that. But at the large scale of things, no country can count on philanthropy to solve its social and the environmental problems. So at the end of the day, what remains is the market, but a different kind of market. And this is what I call responsible endogenous entrepreneurship. Endogenous. And I insist on endogenous. In emerging countries, it can be India, it can be Morocco, my home country, Indonesia, there is a lot of money there is money, there is talent, there are talented people, there are talented entrepreneurs, and there is money, there is even big money in our countries. And it is the duty, I think, of indigenous, of local entrepreneurs and investors to tackle these issues that I mentioned here and show that they can do a better, or maybe just complement, not better job, but just complement efforts of the public sector and of the philanthropic sector to work and solve these problems. So this is what I call, this is the mandate for responsible endogenous entrepreneurship. So the good news is that responsible entrepreneurship has a good future, and it's growing. This is, I see a movement across the globe in this area. Many drivers are there, and members of the audience may have their own ideas about other drivers. I just pick here on 3 main drivers that are really pushing and favoring the development of responsible entrepreneurship. Awareness. This is, I hope that you can all see and read these findings from a survey. This is a survey conducted by Deloitte, as you can see on the slide, in 2019. So it's quite recent. And Deloitte, they surveyed about 2,400, if I am correct, 2,400 executives, CEOs, senior executives, senior public officials, public service officials, and so on and so forth. So what you have here, the numbers you see here are numbers coming from a survey of top business people and public sector people, who are now saying that when they evaluate the performance of a business, they are looking at societal impact, even before financial performance, which comes forth here. I hope this is true. I hope this is true. I have no reason to question the sincerity of the respondents. Some might argue that there might be a discrepancy, but there may be a gap between what these senior business leaders say and what their companies do. But still, what I take from here is that there is awareness. This is, sorry, and I have to say that the survey is US, is American. So this just tells us that there is a level of awareness. Now, there may be a gap between awareness and action, but nothing can happen before there is awareness. So hopefully awareness will drive behavior. In Indonesia, you have now a young generation of millennials who are taking, I think they're taking the responsibility, they're taking charge of some of these issues. So there's hope. There's hope there. As you see, there's a 70% of the people who are surveyed here say they started their business in the last 2 years. So that's, hopefully this is the beginning. This is the beginning of a massive movement. And I will come back to the social enterprise side of it and say a few things about that. So there is awareness. There's also financial innovation. Crowdfunding, which is growing very fast. I don't have, I could have, I think I should have found some or used some numbers, but members of the audience are certainly aware. But crowdfunding now is giving access to decent financial resources for entrepreneurs who may not be, or whose business model may not be mature or suitable enough yet for private investors. and there are different models of crowdfunding. I think I don't have to go into the detail there. What I see also, this I have seen in France, I must say, I see this also in Korea. I see that governments now are supporting for-profit ventures that have a social, environmental, innovation agenda. I don't know much yet about Korean context, but in France, for a long time, public money could not go to support for-profit ventures. There was a kind of reluctance, even refusal of the public bureaucracies to hand money, so to speak, to for-profit entrepreneurs. Now this is becoming possible. In the context of Indonesia, I have to mention the carbon compensation financial instruments, which can, for some entrepreneurs, this can be a very significant source of funding at early stages. And more importantly and massively, I would like to emphasize the growth, the exponential growth of impact investing. Impact investing, these are funds, these are venture capital funds that have environmental and social and governance ESG, so as they are called, ESG agendas at the core, and they invest only in ventures that have this environmental, social, or governance agenda at the heart of the business model. So this is a very promising trend here. It's about, I think this is also global, not only US, the 1/4, 25% of assets now under management being dedicated to ESG or environmental, social, and governance focused projects. So this just means that there is at least one part of the private sector, the funding part today is there and is ready to support for-profit ventures that have a social and the environmental agenda. So this is funding. The third driver, as I said, is technology. Thanks to the frugal innovation movement, now, I mean, it's possible. There are the technologies that can enable the production, let's say, of energy, or the processing of some waste, or you name them, with technologies that are fairly simple and cheap. There's the movement that I think it's also, there's some convergence with frugal innovation. Others call it tech for good. So there's a kind of movement within the technology entrepreneurship stream, movement of scientists and entrepreneurs that are working on the tech for good, technologies that contribute to the common good. Crowdsourcing of ideas and solutions. So this is a kind of parallel to crowdfunding. But crowdsourcing is crowdsourcing of technologies and open source technologies and that kind of thing. Interestingly, in a number of areas, this is probably also related to frugal innovation and tech for good. There are now small-scale technologies for water processing, waste management, energy production. You can produce energy today at a very, very small scale, right? Even at the scale that you need just to charge your phone, your smartphone. You can have a small solar panel that you can carry on your shoulder and charge your smartphone. You have certainly all seen things like this. And digital technologies that are enabling today remote access to information, cheap access or free access to information, to education, to a lot of services today can be made accessible to people in remote areas or people who have very education. For example, I wonder if some in the audience might be aware of the CAN or the Khan Academy, which is a huge online free access platform where you can learn almost everything. It's vocational training. These digital tools are digital technologies are democratizing access to a lot of things that were not accessible or affordable before. So again, awareness, funding, and technologies. I can skip this slide. This is just shows that in Indonesia, there's an ecosystem today that we still call social entrepreneurship. There is an ecosystem under development. The country is not starting from zero. There are a lot of people on the private side, in the private sector, in the public sector, doing their best to deal with the issues that I mentioned. What is the problem as I see it? And here we have just one example. I picked one example of a very creative business model where solid waste management, picking and processing is combined with access to healthcare. I mean, you have to be very creative to put the two things together in one business model. But this is just one example of the things that are going on in your country that are led by innovative, creative, mostly young entrepreneurs. But the big problem there, and this is not me saying it, but this is one of these entrepreneurs, the social enterprise paradigm has very limited potential because it is seen as basically as charity, and funding of social entrepreneurship will always be tight, will always be limited. Scaling social enterprises to take them to scaling them even at the level of a region or a big country like Indonesia is always going to be a problem. So I really believe that social entrepreneurs, I see social entrepreneurship as a kind of lab where social entrepreneurs pilot new ways of doing things and affordable ways of doing things. So I think of it as a lab where prototypes are built, where proof of concepts are made, but to put these innovations to scale, you need the for-profit engine. That's basically what I'm trying to convey to you here. This is another quote, which basically says that the government needs to realize that social entrepreneurship, which now I want to call responsible entrepreneurship, is there to help government accomplish or provide services to the population that government cannot or alone cannot provide. So instead of seeing entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs as an alternative or as rivals or competitors, government must see entrepreneurs as the necessary arm, I think, to execute national strategies. And the government in your country and officials in your country, they are aware of this. So this is a quote from one of your ministers that I found. And I let you read it with me, or I can read it with you to sum it up. The government of Indonesia acknowledges the contribution and the role of social entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. So my message to you today is that I would like, in the future, I would like to see the government saying that they acknowledge the contribution and the role of responsible entrepreneurship and set the conditions for the right conditions and resources for the for-profit entrepreneurship sector to fully participate in the development of the country and in dealing with the social and the environmental challenges that are today being dealt with by social entrepreneurs with the support mainly of NGOs and multinational corporations. Universities have a major role in this. I think universities are places and vectors of cultural change. I don't need, and I think I'm almost using my time here. I don't want to elaborate on everything here, but I would just want to pick on the last bullet point, not the next to last, the third one. I believe that universities must act as change agents in their local communities. This is a major, this is a big, I'm aware that this is a big statement. Universities traditionally have been seen as places for the creation and dissemination of knowledge. I am adding another mandate here to universities as change agents in their local communities and safe spaces where innovative solutions to those big social and environmental problems can be elaborated, can be tested, can be proven before they're taken out and scaled at the level of communities, regions, or countries for that matter. So that's basically that's my message to you. And I really believe that, well, let me say this. The 20th century has seen the triumph of capitalism on the alternatives that pretended to be better than capitalism. So capitalism closed the 20th century in a kind of triumphant march. So now in the 21st century, nobody is questioning, I think, or very few people now are questioning the legitimacy of capitalism. But now that capitalism has won the battle and is basically the only player on the ring, so to speak, now capitalism has to prove that it can be a force of the common good, that it can be the solution, not only the problem. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to interact with you and to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hamid, for your presentation. Professor Hamid, and of course, we are grateful for your, for your really tight schedule, but you can really, spare your time for us in the conference. Professor Hamid, we have seen the presentations of the, our other distinguished keynote speakers. The first one we talk about the nations, more on the nations or macroeconomics, and our distinguished speaker also mentioned that entrepreneurship is having a key role, even at the macroeconomic side. And then at the second presentations from Professor Aaron, he's explaining more on the micro side, on the marketing, specifically on the digital marketing. And now you are giving a very strategic input, in my opinion, because a social entrepreneurship is really something that we have to not only consider, but focus on in the near future. I remember, Professor Hamid, I have during my multinational companies experience, I have very good meetings with our partners from Japan. Those big electricity companies in Japan, you name it, J-Power and all these companies. The first concern when they want to invest here is how the partners here or our company at that time can guarantee that we can take care of the environmental issues. That's number one. And then you mentioned also on the carbon compensation instruments. It is also in the, not the second priority, but in the first priority. Because for the, let's say for the different world's part, carbon emission is very much important. I think, Professor Hamid, how can you see this, three kinds of aspects, Thank you very much, Prof. Hamid.
Well, I think basically entrepreneurship is meso level. You have the micro, you have the macro, and you have the meso level, right? I think perhaps the short answer is alignment.
Alignment, okay.
It's alignment, and the problem we have is that these three levels. The three levels, the macro, the micro, and the meso levels, they have different time frames, time horizons. They have different cultures and different agendas. So in an ideal world, you would have at the macro level, you would have governments that have a clear agenda and consistent agenda, and an agenda that doesn't change with the change of political majorities and so on and so forth. And you would have a bureaucracy that would be aligned with the political agenda. Because what happens also, most of the time, you have at the very top of a country, for example, you can have very enlightened leaders, but who design very smart strategies and policies and so on and so forth. But when it comes to execution, public agencies basically fail these agendas, and you need entrepreneurs. At the meso level, you need companies and entrepreneurs whose interests are aligned with the common interest. If you have a setting where there's no incentive for entrepreneurs and companies to behave as good citizens, or even negative incentives to behave as good citizens and to take charge of social and environmental problems, you will not get it. In the US, and now this is coming to Europe, you may have heard about the B Corp form. There's a new legal form now that was invented in the US, the B Corporation, which enables now senior executives and CEOs to invest in social responsibility CSR initiatives without being sued, without the risk of being sued by the shareholders. And at the technical level, we need people at the macro level, people who are doing finance, who are doing marketing, who are I would call it the technical level. You need people at the technical level who are aware of the challenges and the meaning of what they do. Let me just take digital marketing, because this was the talk just before. Digital marketing, people are playing with people's lives, are manipulating behavior, are manipulating perceptions and behavior without even being aware of it. They are innocently, very innocently playing with big data. But they are influencing behavior, and they are shaping behavior. They're shaping what people think. I could also say the same for financial engineering and that kind of other areas. So we also need to have experts with a soul.
That's right.
Experts with a soul, entrepreneurs with a soul, and government with a soul, and consistency in execution.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hamid.
Sorry for the long answer. Sorry.
No, that's very good.
That was a long one.
If you don't mind, I have another one, Professor Hamid, because you are talking social entrepreneurship here.
Responsible entrepreneurship, if I may.
Yes, responsible social entrepreneurship. So that's why big companies now really concerned on the emission, carbon emission, and all these polluted, issues, But Professor Hamid, look, some of the big companies, when they invest in, let's say, Indonesia, as you mentioned most of the time, they are still using, let's say, coal. Okay, when you build a power plant, you use coal as the fuel. Yeah. So, but coal, as you know, it's cheap, but somehow it's expensive environmentally, right? Look at China, for example. If you go to Shanghai or Beijing, you will have a big environmental issue. However, that's a different stage of the states, right? As you also mentioned, it's also so one technology may be relevant with one country, but the other technology should be built relevant to that country. So there are differences in technology because you also mentioned on technologies, right? So my question is, how can we really relate this social entrepreneurship with technologies? If we discuss on big projects, for example, $1 billion projects like a power plant. Thank you, Prof. Hamid.
Well, thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a statement about big corporations that are generating some negative externalities. I really believe that those big corporations whose business model is built on activities that have negative externalities, let's say CO2 emissions. You cannot expect those big companies to change their behavior in a radical way. At best, they can mitigate some of the negative externalities very gradually. But if you have, if you are making electricity out of coal, you are making electricity out of coal. There's going to be a level of pollution, right? Yeah. What do? Do we just close everything? No, this would not be responsible policy, because there are you create other externalities. There are jobs at stake. There are other things at stake. So I believe that the long term, the solution has to come from new business models that have social and the environmental problems at the heart of the business model. This is where the hope is. But for existing large corporations, oil or energy, whatever, you have, at best, you can try to mitigate a little bit the impact. And how you mitigate? Again, we go to policy. If you have a policy framework which basically makes those companies pay a little bit for the pollution, then you can hope for some improvement. Look what's going on in Europe, which is also paradoxical. In Europe, they have these mechanisms, penalties for CO2 emissions and so on and so forth. So now, if you look at the trend in Europe, European countries are producing less CO2.
Yeah.
But that CO2 is produced now in China, or maybe in Indonesia,
by European
other parts of the world. Yeah, other parts of the world. If you take into account the CO2 emissions of imported goods in Europe, yeah, you will have a very different trend, and you will see CO2 emissions generated by Europe still increasing.
Yeah.
But again, the hope is from new business models, a new generation of entrepreneurs who put social and the environmental problems at the heart of the business model.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Hamid. I have one more question from the floor, Professor Hamid, if you don't mind. Is how you perceive the investment conditions in Indonesia, and how can social enterprises thrive in the current COVID pandemic? Those are two questions, actually. Thank you, Prof. Hamid.
Well, thank you. I have, being a professor means that you have to repeat yourself a lot. I have to repeat myself that what I'm promoting today, I'm promoting responsible entrepreneurship as the next wave to scale social entrepreneurship. Now, the investment conditions in Indonesia, well, I have to say that I know very little about the Indonesian context. So I would say something, but at the risk of being wrong.
Okay.
There's one thing I know about Indonesia. I know that there's there is money and there's talent in Indonesia. There's big money. Indonesia doesn't need money from outside. And there's tons of talent. Now, I don't know if the legal, social, cultural environment is favorable enough for this money and talent to meet. That I don't know. I'm sorry. Next time, after I live in Indonesia 1 or 2 years, I may be able to answer that question.
I think we will have a schedule. When you are visiting Indonesia, you please visit Universitas Ciputra to give a social entrepreneurship more sessions, Professor Hamid.
And it will be about responsible entrepreneurship.
Okay. So thank you for having your tight time for us today. And we're really grateful having you here with us, and to enrich also our entrepreneurship studies. Because this is, as you said, is our major in the university. All right. So
thank you very much for the opportunity, and good luck, and my best wishes for a very successful conference.
Thank you very much, Professor Hamid. So thank you very much. Okay, participants, let's give our big applause for Professor Hamid.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Hamid.
Very much.
All participants, distinguished participants, thank you very much for following the 3 keynote speakers today, and we will continue with the sessions after this. And Pak Charlie, please, this is your time. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for our keynote speaker, Insinyur Iskandar Abu Bakar, MSc, Professor Aaron Okas from Macquarie University, Australia, and Professor Hamid Boshiki from Seoul Bridge, Korea, and of course, to Mr. Agustinus Nicolas Oro as our moderator. Thank you so much for moderating the event of the keynote speaker. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, right now I would like to know the input, your comprehension, and probably your testimony about this event from our participants. So right now, if you have something to say about the information that you gain from the first, second, or the third speaker, or probably your testimony about this event in general, please share your opinion. So if I call your name, you can turn on your camera and also unmute yourself so you can share your opinion. Once again, about this event in general, or probably about specific information that you gain from the first, second, or the third speaker. Once again, if I call your name, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself so you can share your opinion to all the participants. Okay, the first one, Adelia Puspa Kirana. Okay, I want to hear your comprehension. I want to hear your testimony. Please, Adelia Puspa Kirana.
Thank you very much for the time. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adelia, student of Magister Program in Ciputra University. And this conference is such a great opportunity for us as a student or learners, because we can get more insight from the international experts with the topic sustainable entrepreneurial competitive advantage in digital era, which we needed as a future entrepreneur, so that we know how to deal with the problems and how to maintain the competitive condition in the future. This online conference also wider up our connections, get connected with participants across the world. Now I know that digital era is starting now, and just like us having these online conversations, and that's the point why we have to take advantage of the digital era on our future business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adelia. So I would like to know, what about your opinion about this event in general? Your opinion about this event in general?
I think it's very good with this pandemic condition. So everyone in Indonesia, especially, we can join these conversations and this conference with only just with the technology, with just spend our time, and then we get a lot of input, insight from the international expert.
Okay, once again, thank you so much for your testimony, Adelia Puspa Kirana. Now, we are moving to the second participant who will share her opinion from Ina Silas.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon as well.
So I hope you can all see me and hear me because I use my handphone.
It's okay.
So it's very interesting because this is my first conference because I just joined the Magister Management of Ciputra University this year.
Sure.
And then I can join only to hear the presentation of Professor Aaron and Prof. Hamid. And very interesting, to learn such broader knowledge about how the digital, we can leverage the digital through for marketing, to push the branding, as well as for the what Professor Hamid said is responsible entrepreneurship. So some of their points actually I experienced already myself during my professional period before, in my entrepreneurs, in the enterprise, in the museum, and I can guarantee what their presentation, what they said is actually true, and then it's very, very, feasible. We can still do it. And then also the role of the government, I hope we can more push the role of the government to help the social entrepreneurs or the responsible entrepreneurs. So about this conference itself, it's been very interesting. So I really hope that, I can join the other session of this conference, so I can learn, and then I can also leverage my own knowledge that, I can do it and then practice it in my real life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ina Silas. And this is your first conference, right? Oh, okay.
Yes, okay. This is my first conference. Okay. Sorry.
This is your first conference. So talking about first experience, can you share? Because first thing is, one time is very unforgettable. So please probably want to share something about the first conference, the first conference of experience.
Yeah, well, actually, this is about the level of the speakers, as well as the knowledge that they share, information that they share is really related what I learned actually in the Magister Management. So I think it's very important, that Ciputra University continue to organize such a conference in the future. Maybe not only maybe once a year, but maybe I think twice or something. So I think, learn from others, that's very, very useful.
Okay, so next year, ICON 8 will be held. So I hope that you can follow as well the next year event of ICON. Sure, ma'am?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We are moving to the third participants. Hisham, please share your opinion. Okay, we are moving to the next participants. Charisal Lim. Once again, Charisel Lim, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself to share your testimony.
So thank you very much,
Yes,
sir, for the opportunity. So today's ICOEN event is very, very insightful. And I'm very happy to participate with this event. And some of the most important things that I received from this event, one of them from Professor Hamid and from Professor Aaron too, is today in this digital era, in this pandemic, branding is very, very key for entrepreneurship. And it's also important for us not to only be an entrepreneur, but also to be a responsible social entrepreneur, as Professor Hamid said. And also, one of the most stuck thing about what Professor Aaron said to me is that marketing is not like just a war, but it's a strategy, like chess. And like the art of war from Sun Tzu said, that it's not only about the logo or making a slogan that is called such as branding, but it's actually how the brand persona and how the customer feels about the brand is actually how you brand your company. And so I'm very, very happy for this ICOEN event. And I really hope that next year this event will be held as well. And I really look forward to meeting you again. Thank you.
okay, so we are looking forward for your contributions in joining our event next year. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, after this, we are going to have lunch break, but I have to give you information as well. Please change your Zoom account using your real name. And of course, if you want to get certificate from this conference, please fill out the form below. And then please stay in the Zoom room. Once again, to all the participants, please stay in the Zoom room, and we will continue our parallel sessions in breakout room exactly at 12:30. Once again, we will continue our session in parallel breakout room at 12:30 sharp. So please stay in the Zoom room, and I'll see you soon at 12:30.